click to clip to layer. All right, and then you get the same result. And then there's yet another way that you can do this, and that is by, if you go here, hold down the Alt Option key before you click and add the adjustment layer, and then hit Hue and Saturation again. Now you'll notice here, it's asking you, do you want to use the previous layer to create a clipping mask? Well, yes we do. And you don't have to really name this layer or anything unless you want to. So I'm just going to go ahead and click OK, and you see we get the same result. So there are a number of ways that you can actually add clipping masks. All right. Once you've done that, check off the Colorize box here under your Hue Saturation adjustment under the Properties. All right, and we're going to boost the saturation up a little bit and just see what looks good, and play around with the hue and the saturation sliders a little more. All right, something like that. See, you can go really far with the saturation and get something really orange looking like that, okay? And you'll notice that we actually have a layer mask attached to our hue saturation adjustment. And what that's going to allow us to do is to basically decide where we want this orange light to be, and we can remove parts of it as well. So what I'm doing now is just switching back to my brush tool, and I'm going to lower the opacity to about 20%, hold down the Shift key, and just then hold the left bracket. So that'll change it from a hard to a soft brush. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just lightly start to brush over the side of the cell phone image here. Okay, mostly in the middle of the cell phone. We're just going to play around with that and see how it looks, because we don't really want this to affect the screen. And we'll remove a little more from the bottom here. So we really just want it on certain parts. Okay, and you can see what's happening here is I'm just removing some of that color off of the cell phone in these areas where I'm brushing with black. Alright, so this is the power of combining layer masks with adjustment layers. Alright, you can go as far as you want with this. You can always bring it back using a white brush instead of black. Alright, and play around with the opacity as well. So I'm just going to turn that on and off. You can see before it was kind of a grayish blue, and now it has that orange tint to it. And if you want, you can also go ahead and play around with some of the blending modes. So you see you have overlay, which doesn't look too bad. Soft light, more subtle. And I think what I want to do is use something like color. Alright, so color will apply the color but use the brightness from the layer below it. I like this blending mode a lot, actually. I tend to use this in a lot of my work. But right now you can see how we're just beginning to blend this cell phone into the rest of the image. Okay, so if I select my cell phone layer and go back down to the adjustment layers icon, I can then select something such as the brightness or contrast, and it will automatically have a layer mask, or sorry, a clipping mask attached to it, and that's because I'm putting it in between the layer and the previously adjusted clipping mask for the hue saturation adjustment. Alright, so now what I can do is play around with the brightness. Alright, you can play around with the contrast. And you know, I like something a little more contrast, but not too much. You can see if you go too far with it, it just starts to lose some of the detail. So I want something a little more neutral, a little more subtle, maybe somewhere around there. Alright, you can darken it, you can lighten it a little bit. I think I should, for now, leave that at about 0. Alright, so these are a couple of ways that you can push it even further with your clipping masks and layer masks and things like that. And I've also showed you guys some of the benefits of using a smart object versus a regular raster layer. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and save this where we are. And in our next lesson, we're going to push this even further and start to add some more shapes on top of the cell phone, around it, and just start to pull things together. So we'll see you soon.